Good Wednesday to you, everybody. Income 831. Welcome to, are you ready for this? Week, boom, bam, 14. 14, a mere 2 weeks to go, and really only 1 week, because during the last week, week 16, I'm going to give that over to you to finish up with everything you need to finish up with. All right, so let's get started for this week. Hey, blessed Thanksgiving this week, okay? And, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, yeah. The Sam A. Baker State Park, one of the many delightful state parks that I have available to me here in Missouri. Enjoy it very, very much, as well as the coffee cocoa that now graces my cup. Okay, let's talk about this week, and then we'll take a look at the questions from last week. Okay, first things first. This week is the last week of readings and questions. All right, after this week, you are el finitoed. Okay. Now I know, the material went up a little bit late, or should have gone up yesterday. It went up today. That is the reading material and the discussion questions. So I'll give you to the end of next Tuesday next week. That is December the 2nd. Okay. So fear not. All right. But in that week, that next week, December, I guess it's actually the week begins on Sunday. So it would be November 3rd. November 30th, excuse me, through December 6th. Okay. No readings. All right. This is going to be the week in which you drill down and focus and finish your papers and you prepare for your final exam, because I will give to you in that week, probably around the 1st or the 2nd, a review sheet for your final exam. All right. Now, what can you expect to find in this review sheet? I will give you examples of some questions. I'm not going to, give you a list of questions, because what would be the point of having an exam? And then I'm going to give you a list of areas that you should focus on, drawn from our readings this semester. So this will, as I've said many, many times, if you study the discussion questions, you're studying for the exam. But using this review sheet, I hope that this will give you a little bit of reassurance, a stronger sense that in terms of focusing on the discussion questions, you're focusing on the material that will be found on the exam. All right. I give this review sheet to you because you give me your honor that you're not going to use it during the test. Right? Right. Okay. So that's coming up in this, our final week, the 14th. And yes, I know it's Thanksgiving. We're going to finish the future of nonprofits. Okay. And that's just, see what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 3, 4 short chapters. And then I've given you some additional readings, 1, 2, 3 PDFs. Okay. Now, for some of you, I do believe during this summer that had me for summer residency, I talked with you a little bit about how to improve and increase your reading speed. Because, it's interesting. I've been around long enough. I've been around communication long enough to be able to say that I was there when, as far as, mass participation is concerned, the internet was born. And actually, by the way, better said, it's internets, right? But anyhow, because the first internets were created long before I was born, but by way of mass participation, that didn't happen really until the late 1980s, early 1990s. I was blessed with having a professor who was very, very attuned to what the movement towards digitization was going to do by way of its impact on scholarly research. And he put up and for many, many years maintained the second oldest website on the World Wide Web. So, I go way back in terms of the emergence and application of this technology. And, as a result, I know a lot about it. Okay. And one of the things that people were predicting when the internet came into being was that it was going to reduce the amount of paper used for print, and it was going to reduce the amount of material, read material, that would be consumed by people. Both of those predictions not only turned out to be wrong, but turned out to be exactly the opposite wrong. The use of the internet and the expansion of the World Wide Web not only increased the amount of print publication and printed material, it dramatically increased the amount of material that the individual is expected to read and digest. Because it just, literally as we speak, it's multiplying multiples of multiples, that is exponentially. Okay, so what do you do? As a savvy developing communication professional, you got to keep up with this. All right? So here's what you do. All right. When I'm reading, and I'm reading for work, I'm not reading for pleasure, or I'm not reading my own work. I don't read every word on a page. No. All right. I'm scanning paragraphs, looking for the central points in the paragraph. And sometimes when I find them, I might make a note. I'll just jot it on the margin of the text that I'm reading, or if it's an electronic text, I might type it afterwards. That summarizes several sentences, paragraphs into one, or just a few words. Right? In addition to that, here's something I want you to try and work on this, say, after the semester. Okay. So you take a look at your standard page. This is the introduction to the future of not-for-profits. Okay. We knew when we sat down to write this book. All right. Now, if you're not thinking about it, because this is how you're trained, you're going to read this by looking at each word, word by word. We knew when we sat down to write this book. You're looking. All right. You're leaving money on the table by doing that. Reaching for a pencil. All right. Your vision, your brain has a tremendous capacity to register things on the periphery. That is, to see something over here without directly staring at it, and to register that it's there and what it is. If you didn't have this capacity, they wouldn't let you anywhere near the steering wheel of an automobile, because you can't safely drive an automobile with only seeing like this. You're actually seeing out to about here in terms of what it registers. That's quite a wide range. Use that to your advantage. All right. Let me suggest this. All right. Instead of looking word by word at the sentence, train your eyes. Right? This takes a little practice. All right. Train your brain to jump to the center of the, turn up this. Bloody hell. Train your brain, instead of going word after word after word, train your brain to look for the word that's the center of a cluster of 3 words. Let me show you what I mean. Can you see I put a little dot? So instead of looking at we knew when, you focus your attention on the word knew. Your brain will see we and when. And then you sort of hop over to the next one. And you focus your attention on sat. And then you hop again and focus your attention on right. Your brain will read each of the words in front and after that, and it'll make a sentence out of it. It's going to seem, it seems weird. It seems like, oh, how could this be? it will make sense out of that 3-word cluster. Because you could take 3 words, move them around in order, and your brain will real quickly make sense out of a proper order. And that's, you know, that's one of the distinct characteristics of English. It is, as a language, not entirely, but highly order dependent. There are other languages that are not so much order dependent, especially when you get into ancient languages. They had a mind that was a lot more flexible linguistically than ours, and they like to move things around by way of order in a sentence. Latin is an example of one of those. That's not the case anymore. So if you took the words "the cat sat," just pulling things out of my hat. Sorry here, folks. And you wrote them on a page, "cat sat the," it would take you about a nanosecond to figure out that the sentence, the word order is "the cat sat" or "cat the sat." All right, you just, boom. So you can increase the speed with which you scan across the sentence by focusing on the center of every 3rd word and then jumping to the next and to the next and to the next. Try it. It'll increase your reading speed. It'll increase your ability to get through text. And as you do that, you're sort of hopping along. You're not reading every single word. You're not reading every single paragraph. You're looking for the main points. You're looking in scholarly work, you're looking for the supporting evidence, and then you're moving on. Because it's work. You got work to do. Now, when I'm reading something and I'm reading for the enjoyment of the text, you know, there are some authors who just use the language beautifully. I can think of a number of them, but here's one that leaps to mind, an author by the name of Barry Lopez, Arctic Dreams. And he takes a trip around the Arctic Circle and talks to all sorts of people who are making a living in all sorts of ways around the Arctic Circle. And his use of language is just exquisite. It is just beautiful. There, you know, for the same reason that I would slow down and course by course, or maybe food by food and bite by bite, enjoy a meal that has been carefully prepared, rather than, you know, wolf it down like an energy bar on a hike or something. Okay, I'll slow down. I'll read every single word. But for work, don't do it. Okay? You don't have to. All right, so finish Future of Not-for-Profits. Okay, read those 3 articles. Go over to the discussion section and answer the questions. They'll be due at the end of Tuesday instead of Monday. And then you're done. Okay? You're finished with the reading materials for the semester. And then you're focusing in on getting your papers done and preparing for the test. All right. Now, I've said this before, but a quick note again. So I have a hard stop in the week of December the 7th. The semester is over, finished, done, you know, at the dawn of the 13th, that is on Saturday. So everything really has to be done in the can and out the door by way of final grades by Friday, December the 12th. So these are 2 hard, fast due dates. And if you're having any issue in the lead up, you need to contact me ASAP, not after the fact. All right? December the 8th. Okay, your papers are due. That is a hard date. I can't push past that. And then I'm going to open the exam on the 10th, and you'll have till the sun sets, you know, strokes past midnight on the 11th to complete the exam. I'll give you, you know, it's basically going to be like 48 hours. Okay, 2 days to complete the exam. And then Friday, the 12th, I need to finish and get all the grades done, because the 13th, it's all over, right? Everything is finished. All right. So if you've got any issues, any schedules, you're struggling with your paper, get in touch with me now. Okay. All right. Let's take a look back at week 13 and take a look at the questions, see what you had to say. Okay. Question number 1. Why, according to Neff and Moss, is awareness so critical to the success of a not-for-profit? Okay. Let's see what you had to say. Tamara. According to Neff and Moss, awareness is critical for not-for-profit on several levels. First, there needs to be a level of understanding about the organization as a business. I come right back to that. Put a pin in that's very important. A study that examines our outreach and how, and I'm assuming you mean yours. Okay, you're switching voices here. How your message needs to name specific actions which advertising looks for. I'm excusing my fault. What advertising looks like for your not-for-profits, not just outdated PSAs, innovative ways to share your not-for-profit brand. Recognition of advertising is not recommended because it can be searched online. Neff and Moss say that action campaigns are the way to go. Call to action at this point. Okay, good answer. Cynthia, let's see what you had to say. The authors argue that being aware of what's going on in your business, your competition, and environment around you is critical to the access of any organization. And that awareness, I think you mean success, that awareness is key to understanding the current, future, and environment. Okay, excellent. Here's the takeaway. If you get involved in the not-for-profit, whether it's your own or anybody else's, I want to recommend to you that you look, not-for-profits. It's an interesting industry. It's volatile. There's a lot of them that come and go. First, if you're signing on with one, take a careful look at it and make sure, based on what you can see, that is how they operate, that they understand that they're a business just like any other business, and they're competing with other businesses. One of the challenges to not-for-profit work that I've always found interesting is you are, in effect, first of all, you're after, for the most part, people's disposable income. That is income that they have left over after they've taken care of necessities. So if you were in the food business, okay, food is a necessity. You're competing with other necessities, but it's a necessity. See, there's that advantage coming, right on the upfront. Not-for-profit, this isn't a necessity. This is discretionary. So you're looking at their discretionary income. That's the first challenge that you have. Secondly, the product that most not-for-profits do, food, education, water, advocacy, these sorts of things, is not delivered to the person with the money. So the donor gives the money, and then the services is delivered to the target population. So you have an additional step more than a regular business, because a regular business is like, I want an ice cream cone. You're selling an ice cream cone. Sell me an ice cream cone. So I give the organization the money. They give me that which I desire, which is the ice cream cone. That's not the case in not-for-profit, right? Now what they desire, say, is the advocacy or the clean water, the education for the individuals that you're working with. Okay, so it's a challenge. So not-for-profits have to understand that they have competition because they're first and foremost competing for discretionary income. And in order to survive and thrive, they have to follow some of the same rules that businesses do, identifying their target audience, going with appropriate advertising, follow up, dialogue with their customers, that is their donors, all of these things. So before you sign on to a not-for-profit, because not-for-profits can be, the industry can be volatile, and these things can come and go at disruptive speeds. Because you want to get a job and you get settled in, and you think, okay, now I have this revenue stream, and you build expectations within your life around the revenue stream, like a car and an apartment and a certain amount of food, and then the revenue stream is gone. And then you're like, oh, I guess I can't expect to have these things anymore. All right. So take a look at the not-for-profit and make sure that is operating the best that you can observe like a business. If it's not, my advice to you is to stay away. Stay away. And if you're thinking about launching a not-for-profit for yourself, remember, first and foremost, you're a business. So learn something about the business of business. Okay. Question number 2. Please explain the following equation. So you might, see this equation just like as is, a wink, on the final exam. That's what to look for here. ADV equals awareness squared plus call to action squared. Now, I didn't come up with this. Okay, I thought it was interesting. What does each of these elements mean to the success of a not-for-profit? Why are some of the elements in the equation squared? Okay. All right. Let's see. Who did I have for his? Sarah, the author uses the equation as a simple way that not-for-profits succeed when people know who they are and are clearly told what action to take. Awareness is about visibility and call to action about giving people next direct step. Part of the squared parts are squared because the stronger each one is, the bigger the impact, more likely to amplify the not-for-profit message. Okay, that's true, Sarah. But remember, make sure that you're not leaving stuff behind, because I asked you to identify what each of these symbols meant. Okay. Kenesha, ADV equals advertising, okay, is essential to the success of not-for-profit because it fuels visibility. Okay. And then awareness is awareness. This is essential because it is the starting point for every form of mission impact, such as fundraising, program participation, et cetera, et cetera. Call to action. This is important because it turns awareness into impact. Awareness alone only informs people, but call to action mobilizes them. Okay, good. Now, here's something that is unique about not-for-profits, and part of the reason that they do this is because of the laws surrounding not-for-profits. When it comes to money in not-for-profits, the law either strictly prohibits or strongly discourages what's called a go statement in advertising. Like if you were selling, I don't know, coffee cups, okay? You could say, we have the most beautiful coffee cups imaginable, the perfect Christmas gift. Go today to our store at blah, 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 blah corner to get your coffee cup. The law strongly frowns on that sort of language in not-for-profit advertising. You can't say, go today and give us money. Okay, but what you can do is what's called a call to action, right? All across Appalachia, people are still suffering in the wake of Hurricane Helene. And then you'll see language like visit us or click on our page to see how you can help or to help someone today, right? That's the call to action. Okay. Interesting thing about this I have found about the psychology of Americans when it comes to informing them. And I've learned this both in the not-for-profit world and as a journalist. Americans don't just want information about the what of the thing going on. They want information about the what is it that they're supposed to do in relationship to it. Keep that in mind in your communications in whatever form you find yourself in. Don't forget to give people the what you should do. Because if you don't, you're going to leave them feeling tremendously unsatisfied. And, they're like, well, I don't get it. What's the point of this story? What am I supposed to do? Give them the what. That's the call to action. Okay, question number 3. According to Neff and Moss, how is structure crucial to an idea's survival and the advancement of innovation for a not-for-profit? Okay. Amber, let's take a look at you. According to Neff and Moss, structure is essential because it protects ideas and gives them an environment they need to grow. Without clear systems and roles, good ideas often disappear in the chaos of daily workflow. Structure turns creativity into action by outlining responsibilities and creating consistent processes. Okay, excellent. And then Michelle, you echo similar sentiment. Hi, you say Neff and Moss state that in order for an idea to stay alive, there must be structure to support and allow the idea to develop from just an inspiration to something that's actionable. And not-for-profits, formless ideas lose the fight to stay alive quickly, and there is no defined process, oversight, or space for these ideas to develop. And excellent, both of you. Okay, you know, I think when I first started working with not-for-profits, the propensity of people that within them to come up with ideas just out of the box ideas was initially interesting and intriguing, and yeah, certainly exciting. But without a structured environment within which this idea could actually develop into action, I have to confess that the out of the box ideas that often permeate not-for-profits, they just came to annoy me. I work with a lot of religious not-for-profits, and being a Catholic Christian, many of them Catholic, and I just, I think maybe there's one example which epitomizes this issue in my mind, and that was, I don't even remember what the organization was collecting money for, but anyway, they're getting ready to launch a program. They need a lot of money, and someone said, we're having a strategy meeting about the project, and someone says, you know what I know, you know what I read, Mel Gibson gives a lot of money to Catholic Christian organizations. And the echo went around the table. Oh, Mel Gibson. And I sat there and I thought, I don't even remember if I piped up. I probably should have, but I don't remember if I did. I sat there thinking, yeah, okay, does anybody in this room know Mel Gibson? Does anybody in this room know anybody that knows Mel Gibson? Does anybody in this room know exactly what are the qualifiers, what are the parameters by which Mel Gibson decides to give money to Catholic Christian organizations? If not, why even mention? I mean, Mel Gibson or the Tooth Fairy, just throw a non-committed, non-structured, and as such imaginary, I'm not saying Mel Gibson's imaginary, but imaginary source of funding into the plan. Structure to turn these ideas into real things. And by the way, what Neff and Moss mean by structure is an environment both in which plans that can be realized and plans that are just nonsense can be chucked out. Like, let's go ask Mel Gibson. All right, because that was just nonsense. Question number 4. List the 3 main elements of Neff and Moss's staffing solutions. In addition to these 3, would you add any additional elements? Which of the 3, in your informed opinion, is the most important for the survival of a not-for-profit? Okay, now remember, when I say in your informed opinion, I'm assuming you've gone out and you've done a little work. Okay, so in terms of this question, for a test, you would probably see me saying, which of these are the 3 elements, or which one of the following is not. Okay. James, let's take a look at you. The right people, number 1, the right roles, and the right skills. And you say, I would add to those 3 the right culture, because even with the right people, roles, and skills, innovation will stall if the organization's culture is resistant to change. So having a culture that supports learning, collaborating, and trying new things will provide the ground where the other 3 elements can flourish and take root. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's a good answer. I can tell you that when I first started in the not-for-profit business back in 2009, I think 2008, something like that, like almost 20 years ago, I was naive about the importance of having the right people in the right roles with the right skills. And I don't mean for me, because it was myself and just one other person running the company, and then it was eventually just me because the other person dropped out. I mean within the not-for-profits that I was there to help. And this naivete came crashing down upon me with terrible results when I was working with a not-for-profit in Zambia. And they had been founded by a Danish group of missionaries was very successful. They were pulling in money from a number of international sources, considerable amounts, and they wanted to expand what they were doing. And one of their main programs was delivering retroviral drugs to people who were living with the HIV virus. And so some of them had developed full-blown AIDS, and some of them were, right on the border in terms of symptomatic presentation of HIV. And so anyway, they wanted to expand that money. It's a big problem across the continent. There are roughly as many people living with HIV as there across the continent of Africa. It's like 300 and something million of them, as there are the entire population of the United States. So I went there. I spent 2 weeks living, working, participating in the programs, out documenting it, taking pictures, talking with the people. I put together this big media push plan. I came back to the States. I launched it. I wrote copy. I appeared on radio shows. I did some television promoting this organization. I built them a website and put it all out there. And the response was tremendous. The people came flooding in to the organization to help, and then it crashed down and burned. Why? Because the individual handling the technology, which really just meant email and the website that I had built, and the individual responding to the donors, were completely the wrong people for those roles. The individual that was responsible for the IT had very, very limited knowledge, operational knowledge of some of the basics of email and website maintenance. And the person that they had assigned to respond to the donors was just not a person that was self-motivated and got on things like that. Okay. And this is something that is characteristic of donors. If they send an organization money and they don't hear anything, they get really cranky. And the campaign was a victim of its own success. And it happened very rapidly, within like a month. And there began to be reports that emerged in the Western press that called into question the legitimacy of the campaign, was this is actually really a thing, and even the legitimacy of the organization. This thing had been established for years. I was like, oh, and I have never ever worked with an organization. Let me rephrase that. I've worked with organizations and campaigns that didn't go as planned. I've never ever worked with an organization that blamed itself when we were working together. And I had this epiphany. I said, okay, in order to keep this from happening and to build a value add into my business, I added an additional service. At first it was optional, then it became prerequisite before I did any work. Okay, and I called it capacity flow assessment. Excuse me, capacity flow assessment. That was a dressed up name for me showing up to the organization and spending a few hours over the course of a number of days with each of the key players in each of the roles that I knew were going to be critical for pulling off the success of a campaign, and asking them some questions, just friendly, open-ended way, that were the questions designed to get at exposing their skill level, because people aren't going to come right out and tell you, oh, I'm incompetent. No, they're afraid of losing their job. And then I took the findings and I went back to, before it began the campaign, the board of directors, and I said, hey, okay. And I told the board of directors, this is what we're going to do. I took the findings back and said, hey, so-and-so is she's the one you want in that spot. So-and-so, I don't think that this person is serving you well, and you might consider putting somebody else in that role or moving him somewhere, and then getting somebody in there before we began the campaign. And things went much better from that point forward, not only in terms of my revenue, because I was able to value add in terms of the billings, the capacity assessment flow work, but I could assure the board of directors with a higher degree of confidence and myself as the program architect that it was going to be successful when it launched. So, you know, look, if you're going to sign on with an organization or if you're going to build one, beware of this. It's common in the not-for-profit world that you find many, many people who show up that they need, and I'm talking about workers, they need the not-for-profit. They need to be involved with the effort much more than the effort needs to be involved with them. They need you more than you need them. And that's, I'm not trying to sound callous or condescending. It's just human nature. All right, everybody. Good luck with the last week of readings and questions. All right. Remember, if you have any concerns or issues about hitting that hard deadline, please reach out to me. Now, have a blessed Thanksgiving. I think about you. I pray about you. And I will see you next week on Canvas. God bless. Bye-bye.